welcome to India Energy Bulletin, a series where we bring you the latest news, policy developments and technological advancements that are driving India's sustainable growth story. Climate change is a global challenge that calls for urgent action. While the demand for energy keeps increasing, countries are looking at tackling climate change through innovation in clean tech. India has seen unprecedented rise in its innovation ecosystem and is a highly attractive market when it comes to high-quality, frugal innovations. A lot of private enterprises too are innovating to develop affordable and efficient solutions and products in an environmentally sustainable manner. There are a lot of innovations that are shaping the renewable energy sector, and new energy technologies are becoming increasingly popular, creating better awareness around shifting to cleaner solutions. Today, on this edition of India Energy Bulletin, we focus on new tech that has the potential to revolutionize and accelerate the energy transition. India is leading the fight against climate change, and Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman listed green growth as one of the 7 priorities in the Amrit Kal budget of 2023, reinforcing India's commitment to sustainable development. So here's a quick look at how the government is pushing towards green growth.
Budget 2023 builds on India's commitment to lead global action against climate change, preserve biodiversity and support sustainable development. Building onto India's commitments, the government has adopted green growth as one of the key priorities to accelerate energy transition and sustainable growth to lead India in its Amrit Kal. The green growth actions include several measures to accelerate India's sustainability story. The National Green Hydrogen Mission to facilitate the transition of the economy to low carbon intensity and reduce dependence on fossil fuel imports. The target for the Green Hydrogen Mission is to reach an annual production of 5 million metric tons by 2030. The allocation of 35,000 crore rupees of priority capital investment towards achieving net zero by 2070 and clean energy transition ensures the country's energy security. Viability gap funding for 4,000 megawatt-hours battery energy storage systems and a framework for pump storage projects. An investment of 20,700 crore rupees for interstate transmission systems for evacuation and grid integration of renewable energy to be constructed. The Green Credit Program to be notified under the Environment Protection Act for responsive actions by individuals and companies to encourage environment-friendly behavior, and 500 new waste-to-wealth plans under the Govardhan scheme announced to promote a circular economy.
Finance Minister is giving special importance to green building, green fuel. Everything green is very important, and green fuel is important, and that's the reason that the green is the philosophy for the futuristic technology. It is need of the country, and we are on the right path.
Renewable sector is going to contribute significantly, I feel, to our not only our 2030 targets, 2047 target of energy independence, and net zero target of 2070.
This push for green growth highlights the government's commitment and will act as an enabler in energy transition, creating green jobs and promoting sustainable development.
Innovation is key to enable green growth and move towards a green economy. Innovations in energy storage can be a game changer to help nations on their path to net zero. The transport sector alone is responsible for almost 25% of global CO2 emissions. Developing batteries for energy storage will play a key role in enabling low-emission mobility, as well as for stationary energy storage. Battery technologies have emerged as a leading route for decarbonizing road transport. The stationary batteries can help contribute first to smart grid development, then enable increased efficiency in daily network operations, also integration of renewable generation and planning of more cost-efficient future network investments. Solar companies are integrating advanced photovoltaic systems to minimize the need for additional land usage. Integrated PV, photovoltaics and agrivoltaics are some of the emerging technologies that are set to open up new opportunities for scaling up solar generating capacity. The government is working towards a massive expansion of green hydrogen production to reduce the dependence on energy imports and to move away from fossil fuels to meet climate goals. Green hydrogen production technologies are seeing a new wave of interest. The possible uses for hydrogen are expanding across multiple sectors, including power generation, manufacturing processes in industries, fuel cells for electric vehicles, heavy transport such as shipping, green ammonia production for fertilizer, cleaning products, refrigeration, electricity grid stabilization as well. Decarbonized electricity generation is crucial for energy transition. One of the most innovative technologies in this area is floating offshore wind power. Offshore floating wind energy can help to resolve the problem of low availability of sites onshore or near the shore. Floating wind energy technologies could be deployed in deeper waters and thus opening new areas currently inaccessible to fixed bottom offshore wind. Tata Power has collaborated with MIT to develop and foster new innovations and solutions to sustainably meet energy needs while minimizing environmental impacts and mitigate climate change. We are now being joined by Professor Robert Stoner, who is the Deputy Director for Science and Technology at MIT Energy Initiative and founding director of the MIT Tata Center for Technology and Design, to deep dive into how clean energy innovations can help countries meet net zero goals. Welcome to the show, Professor Robert, and thank you so much for taking out your time today for this important discussion. I would really like to start by asking you your present research at MIT, which focuses on energy storage technology and policy as well, and also on the design and optimization of energy systems and business models in the current developing world that we are in. So how can innovations in energy storage be a game changer on the path to net zero emissions? Also, how important is energy storage when we talk about this big sustainable and net zero path that all the economies are talking about?
That's a very important question, and let me just first say that yes, those are certainly things I work on personally at MIT, but I also work with my organization, the MIT Energy Initiative, on a much broader range of decarbonization related activities, including research into new technologies as well as policy. We're transforming now from a system that is fuel based, using fuel that we largely dig out of the ground, oil, gas, coal, to one that isn't fuel-based. It's converting renewable sources, whether wind or solar, or resources that maybe nuclear resources, and we'll talk about those later, that aren't consumed in producing usable energy in the way that we're used to in our present system. In the present system, you have a power plant, you add more fuel and you get more power out. You want more power, you add more fuel. You want less power, you add less fuel. That's easy. But in a renewable system, the rate of generation of power is going to depend on how intensely the sun is shining, how strong the wind is blowing, for example, or how many nuclear power plants you have online at a given time. You can't just add fuel and turn it up and reduce fuel and turn it down. And that means you have to be always generating energy. And producing energy. And that means that there will be times when you're producing more than you need, and there will be other times when you aren't producing as much as you need. And so storage plays this critical role of keeping that energy available so that it can be deployed when it's needed. We need storage in the form of chemical energy as well, in the form of liquid fuels, perhaps solid fuels that can be used to do those things. But even then, batteries and fuels are expensive, and storing them is expensive. In some situations, it may be appropriate to store energy in the form of heat, thermal energy, directly. Thermal energy is very cheap to store. It gets more expensive as you get to higher and higher temperatures, but a lot of applications in our daily lives and even in industry don't require very high thermal temperature storage. And so I think we have to consider all of those things: battery storage, chemical storage in the form of fuels, liquid and gaseous fuels, and thermal storage. And we're working on all of them.
What is your view then on the current R&D startup landscape in India in the renewable energy space? Because there's a lot of thrust, not only from the government, but we are seeing that in the business arena as well. According to you, what are the current challenges or barriers to innovation for India?
Well, I think India is a very exciting R&D space, for one thing. I had the great pleasure of launching the Tata Center for Technology and Design here at MIT almost a decade ago. And our idea was to engage MIT researchers with Indian researchers in addressing the challenges of the Indian market. And they're different than the challenges we face in many cases. And the most obvious case is that Indians are really, really concerned about costs. I think a tradition in India, but it's also, I think, clearly a response to the fact that Indians are less wealthy and very mindful of needless expenditure in everything that they do. And so we learned a lot from that experience about low-cost thinking, not just low-cost manufacturing, but thinking about technologies and design of technologies in a different way that could lead to low-cost outcomes. And I think that tradition is alive and well in India, and it's powering a new kind of innovation there that is important for us to watch in Western countries. There is no shortage of Indian innovation and no shortage of Indian innovators. So I'm enthusiastic about it. And we're seeing things, even in the current numbers. Tata Power is able to deploy solar PV plants at a embarrassingly small fraction of what it costs to deploy very similar plants in the United States, and that's all about efficient cost thinking. And we will see that not only in PV, we'll see it in storage deployment. We do see it in storage deployment, wind deployment, the deployment even of the wires above us to make grids. So that spirit of low cost innovation is alive and well in India. What about the rest of the innovation system? Well, I've had a lot to do with Indian universities as well through the Tata Center, and clearly there are some very, very impressive Indian university groups and laboratories that compete head to head with global competition, and they do an incredible job of training Indian undergraduates who end up doing things like running most of our large American companies.
All right, so you mentioned Tata Power and Tata Group companies, right? Can you tell us what kind of work is MIT doing with Tata Power to bring in sustainable energy solutions? Because there has been a lot of update there. Research and technology advancements is something that we've seen in the last couple of months.
Yeah, well, I mean, for one thing, we have, through the Tata Center initially, but independent of the Tata Center over the last several years, worked very closely with Tata Power on the challenges of establishing energy access in developing countries. And I talked about that a little bit earlier. That's a process of innovation, both in technology and in regulation. And I consider Tata Power to be a leader in that kind of business and regulatory thinking. And we've learned a lot from them. In fact, the CEO of Tata Power, Dr. Pravir Sinha, is a regular visitor to MIT. He comes and spends a week with us every year, if you can believe that, for a very senior and busy executive. It's a big commitment of time, and is an affiliate researcher in our faculty. So a big honor, and I think a measure of Tata Power's engagement with innovation. Recently, we have begun to work closely together on some of the most important technologies, including thin film photovoltaics, which I talked about recently. Tata Power is a sponsor of thin film perovskite and organic PV here at MIT. And the Tata Center, thanks to the financial support of the Tata Trusts, has long been among the biggest supporters of photovoltaic innovation here.
All right, that was such an insightful conversation. Thank you so much, Professor Robert, for those insights. It was a pleasure talking to you today. And on that note, it's time to go into a quick break. We'll be right back with more innovations revolutionizing the energy sector. So stay tuned for that. Welcome back to India Energy Bulletin. Tata Power, one of India's most progressive green energy companies, playing a key role in India's energy transition journey and driving the change through various tech innovations and energy-efficient solutions. The company has collaborated with various partners from the government, startup and academic ecosystem to usher in new ideas and solutions to build a sustainable, clean and green tomorrow. Tata Power supports the Clean Energy International Incubation Center, which is CEIIC, a joint initiative of Tata Trusts, Government of India and managed by Social Alpha. This is the first international incubator in India under Mission Innovation. The center has been set up at Tata Power DDL Smart Grid Lab, the R&D hub of Tata Power premises in Delhi. The CEIIC focuses on three core areas for innovation: energy access, energy efficiency, and breakthrough clean technology. The incubator is designed to offer complete lab-to-market incubation support to clean energy enterprises, both Indian and international, which can bring about deep and irreversible social and environmental impact. With over 300 plus startups evaluated and 40 plus startups nurtured since 2018. Its vision is set to transform the entire energy value chain of consumption, generation, and distribution across households and industries alike with accessible, affordable, and more efficient solutions. By offering an end-to-end test bed for sustainability-focused enterprises like this, CEIIC aims to fast-track not just India's green energy transition, but global too. D-Electric, one of the early incubators of CEIIC, has successfully developed patented low-cost, long-life vanadium redox flow batteries ranging from 20 kilowatt-hour to multiple megawatt-hours as well. D-Electric's products, when combined with renewables, provide for 24/7 clean energy and thus mitigate the fossil fuel use and its harmful effect on climate. Providing affordable electricity to its users, these batteries don't use rare earth metals, use much less electrolyte, and are reusable at end of life, thus making them a far more planet-friendly and sustainable option. Tech advancements like this encourages enterprises to transition to alternative energy sources worry-free. These batteries are already being used at Tata Power microgrid sites in UP and will be scaled up to other sites based on learnings from these initial installations. To understand how such tech innovations can accelerate the fight against climate change and make sustainable solutions attainable for consumers, we are now joined by Mr. Manoj Kumar, who is the founder and CEO at Social Alpha, and Smita Rakesh, the head climate and sustainability at Social Alpha. Welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you so much for joining us here. Mr. Kumar, I would like to start with you first up. According to you, what role will clean energy innovations play in helping India meet the COP26 pledge?
Thank you, Sonal, for inviting me to this show. It's a great privilege to be here. If you look at India's COP26 pledge, at a high level, it talks about getting net zero by 2070, but there are some very interesting 2030 targets also there. For example, our pledge is to get 500 gigawatt of energy from non-fossil fuel sources, 50% of energy from renewables, reducing the carbon intensity of our economy by, 45% if you look at 2005 as the baseline. So these are some very aggressive and forward-looking targets that we as a country have given to ourselves, and this is a big pledge. And clean energy innovations are going to play a really big role in our ability to meet these numbers.
So, Smita, you head the climate and sustainability at Social Alpha. What are the clean energy innovations that you think will help us beat climate change? What key breakthrough innovations have you seen in the space recently?
Thank you for having us on the show. Like your question rightly centers, it's the problem statements, the problems when it comes to clean energy and climate innovations that matter more, and therefore they need to have the centricity. And so it's critical to, what's important to look at is which are these activities that will be critical to continue and grow in the coming decades. And innovation needs to address how do we do that by causing less and if possible no harm, but also undoing the damage that we've caused in the past when it comes to the climate. So it'll be critical to look at energy's intervention in food systems, in mobility, in power sector decarbonization, waste to energy, and also like just overall standard of living. So we are seeing a lot of very interesting and very impressive innovations across use cases such as small and marginal farmers, where we are seeing innovations in cold storage, biotech innovations for biogas, for soil carbon improvement, for other agri inputs. We are seeing process efficiency improvement in industry along with optimizing for renewable energy. We're seeing mobility is a hot favorite, as we all know, but we are seeing innovations in access to clean mobility for communities in urban and rural settings that don't have access to it, and a lot of work in EV infrastructure for fast charging. The waste to energy technologies, whether we talk about biomass waste or municipal solid waste, we're seeing great innovation in that. And finally, like I said, the deep tech innovation, which is going to be the most critical to the transition to renewables, is in battery chemistries, whether it's at large scale grid-based storage or decentralized energy storage.
Well, Mr. Kumar, as I was pointing out earlier, Tata Power and Social Alpha have joined hands to build a unique innovation curation and venture development program, Net Zero Industry Accelerator, which is focused on industrial use cases of clean energy transition and industrial decarbonization, contributing towards India's net zero targets as well. Could you share further details about this accelerator program?
Tata Power being the largest integrated power company in the country, working on generation to utility distribution, across the value chain of energy. It's really a very important partnership for us. Uh, we Through this accelerator program, we are trying to identify right now various problem statements that exist not only in the energy or power sector but also in various industries, right? Working with Tata Power allows us to go deeper into problem statement and build thesis around each one of these problem statements, right? And we are at that phase right now, working with Tata Power, trying to identify number of use cases where innovation can potentially create impact. Our innovation, curation, and venture development model is based on our ability to curate problem statements and build a thesis so that we can also estimate the potential of market that would be generated for these innovations, right? And that is the most important indicator that a startup or an early stage entrepreneur would be looking at, that which area of decarbonization requires innovation that would have a ready market for us to explore, right? And working with industry, co-creating these problem statements allows us to do two things. One, it allows us to provide sandboxes for pilots and validations of early stage startups which are otherwise not available, right? We cannot actually test something in uh, power industry without having a partnership with one of the larger players there. The second advantage is if you actually have a solution, then you have a market, because that market is actually being created at the time of problem statement curation itself. So working with Tata Power to build this kind of an industrial decarbonization accelerator allows us to send a very positive message to the entrepreneur and innovator community, and also allow people from other industries, from other players in the power industry, as well as other industries which are trying to reduce their carbon footprint and reduce the emissions, uh, getting them on the same platform so that we can collaboratively look at curating more innovations and more relevant innovations, which is really important, right? This also allows us to allocate our resources efficiently.
Thank you so much, Manoj and Smita, for joining us here today. And with that, we come to the end of the show. We at News 18 Network and Tata Power are committed to work together to make sustainable energy solutions more attainable. We will continue to bring you the latest news and updates powering India's green growth story. So stay tuned for that.